For 3 months, Principal Richard Sterling humiliated the quiet janitor, called her uneducated, and even threatened to throw her out on the street. What he didn't know was that the woman holding the mop was Harper Vance, the billionaire funding his school. And on the night he tried to destroy an innocent child in front of hundreds of guests, she finally dropped the act. Because true character is revealed by how you treat those you believe have no power. Clean this up, and if you leave a single streak, you'll be out on the street before morning. Principal Richard Sterling sneered. He tilted his porcelain mug intentionally, pouring his lukewarm coffee directly onto the freshly polished marble floor of the main hallway. Harper stood holding her mop, her light green eyes fixed on the spreading brown puddle. At 36, she had mastered the art of stillness. She wore a faded gray janitorial uniform over a simple white blouse, her chestnut hair pulled back into a messy practical bun. She looked down at the coffee, then back up at the principal's smug face. "Is there a problem?" Harper Sterling asked, adjusting the lapels of his tailored suit. "Because there are 50 other uneducated women who would kill for minimum wage at Crestwood Academy." "No problem, Mr. Sterling," Harper said quietly. "I will clean it." "See that you do. The PTA president is visiting tomorrow, and this place needs to look like it's worth the $40,000 in tuition we charge." He turned on his heel, his leather shoes clicking away down the empty corridor. Harper knelt, grabbing a rag from her cart. She didn't argue. She didn't show an ounce of anger. She simply wiped the floor. "Hey, stop! Let me help you with that," a soft voice called out. Harper looked up to see Jenna Hayes, the new junior English teacher. Jenna dropped to her knees, pulling a pack of tissues from her tote bag and dabbing at the edges of the spill. "You don't have to do this, Ms. Hayes. You'll ruin your skirt," Harper warned gently. "It's just coffee, Harper, and nobody deserves to be treated like that." Jenna sighed, shaking her head. "I don't know how you stand him. The man is a tyrant." Harper offered a faint, polite smile. "Patience is a virtue, Ms. Hayes. People like him eventually trip over their own pride." Jenna chuckled, standing up and brushing off her knees. "I hope you're right. Just let me know if you ever need a break. My classroom is always open." "Thank you," Harper said. As Jenna walked away, Harper pulled a sleek, encrypted smartphone from her deep pocket, a device worth more than a month's salary for a janitor. She opened a secure app, tapping into a private financial database. She looked at a file labeled Crestwood Financials. Sterling. A message from her wealth manager popped up. "Ms. Vance, the $10 million grant check is ready for your signature." Harper typed a quick reply. "Hold the transfer. Sterling is digging his own grave. Give him a shovel." The next afternoon, the main corridor of Crestwood Academy buzzed with wealthy parents attending the open house. Harper was quietly emptying the recycling bins near the administrative office, her presence completely ignored by the elite crowd. "I simply do not understand why we have to lower our standards," a sharp nasal voice echoed. Harper glanced over. It was Eleanor Pratt, the head of the PTA, adorned in diamonds and a designer dress. She was complaining to Principal Sterling near the trophy display. "These charity cases," Eleanor continued, gesturing vaguely down the hall. "They don't fit in. They don't have the breeding. Just look at the boy's shoes." Harper followed Eleanor's gaze. Sitting on a bench outside the office was Leo, a 12-year-old boy clutching a worn backpack. His shoes were clean, but clearly secondhand, the soles slightly peeling. Leo was the brightest student in the 7th grade, attending purely on a full academic scholarship. "I completely agree, Eleanor," Sterling murmured smoothly. "The Vance Trust forces these diversity initiatives on us to keep our funding. But rest assured, I hold them to a zero-tolerance standard. Any slip-up and they are out." Leo kept his head down, pretending not to hear, but Harper saw the slight tremor in the boy's shoulders. He was a good kid, quiet and hard-working. He didn't deserve to be a pawn in their elitist games. Harper quietly pushed her cart past the bench. As she did, she seamlessly dropped a brand-new unopened protein bar and a crisp $20 bill directly onto Leo's lap, giving him a quick, warm wink. The boy looked up, a small, grateful smile breaking through his anxiety. He quickly hid the money in his pocket. Later that evening, in the solitude of the janitor's closet, Harper sat on an overturned bucket. She opened her phone again. She had built Vance Enterprises from the ground up, turning a small tech startup into a billion-dollar empire. She created the Educational Trust to help kids exactly like Leo. If Sterling thought he could take her money while treating her students like garbage, he was making a fatal miscalculation. She tapped the screen, opening a direct link to the school's internal network. It was time to see exactly where her money was going. The loud crash echoed through the East Wing just after 4 p.m. the following Tuesday. Harper, who was polishing the nearby handrails, hurried toward the sound. In the center of the hallway, the school's antique glass trophy case lay shattered. Shards of glass covered the expensive Persian rug, and the prized 1920 athletic cup was dented on the floor. Standing in the middle of the mess, looking utterly terrified, was Leo. "I didn't do it," Leo cried, his voice shaking as Principal Sterling marched out of his office, his face purple with rage. "You clumsy, careless little street rat," Sterling roared, grabbing Leo roughly by the arm. "Do you have any idea how much this costs?" "Please, sir, I was just walking by. A group of older boys ran past and shoved me into it," Leo pleaded, tears welling in his eyes. "Lies. I knew you people were nothing but trouble," Sterling spat. "This is exactly why you don't belong here. I am calling your mother, and then I am calling the board. Your scholarship is revoked, effective immediately." Harper gripped the handle of her broom tightly. Her knuckles turned white. She looked around. There were no older boys in sight, but her green eyes caught a small, blinking red light. Tucked in the corner of the ceiling, a security camera installed just last week, part of an IT upgrade she had personally funded. Sterling clearly hadn't noticed it yet. "Mr. Sterling," Harper said, stepping forward, her voice calm and even. "Perhaps we should check the cameras before making such a severe decision." Sterling turned to her with a look of absolute disgust. "Did anyone speak to you, you illiterate mop pusher? Your job is to clean the glass, not tell me how to run my school." "I am simply suggesting." "You are suggesting nothing," Sterling interrupted. "Clean this up immediately. If I hear one more word out of you, I'll have you fired and blacklisted from every school district in the state." Harper looked at Leo, who was now openly crying, terrified of ruining his mother's sacrifices. Harper nodded slowly. "Understood, Mr. Sterling. I will clean it up." She watched Sterling drag the boy away toward the office. Harper didn't argue. She simply pulled out her phone, hacked into the school's cloud server, using her administrative backdoor access, and downloaded the hallway footage to her secure drive. She watched the playback. It clearly showed 3 wealthy seniors shoving Leo into the case and running away. Harper smiled coldly. The trap was set. The school was dead silent by midnight. Harper moved through the administrative wing, her cleaning cart rattling softly against the hardwood floors. She stopped in front of Principal Sterling's heavy oak door, unlocked it with her master key, and stepped inside. She didn't reach for the duster. Instead, she walked straight to his mahogany desk. Over the past 3 weeks, Harper had noticed glaring discrepancies. The Vance Trust allocated specific funds for scholarship, student housing books, and meal plans. Yet Leo had worn the same threadbare coat all winter, and the library hadn't seen new textbooks in a year. Harper booted up Sterling's computer. Having paid for the school's entire IT infrastructure, she bypassed his weak password in under 10 seconds. She opened the encrypted financial ledgers. Her green eyes scanned the glowing numbers in the dark room. There it was. A shell company called Sterling Educational Consulting. He was siphoning the foundation's grants. Every time a scholarship student was expelled, which happened suspiciously often, the remaining funds for their tuition didn't return to the endowment. They vanished into Sterling's pocket. Furthermore, he was using school funds to cater lavish private dinners for Eleanor Pratt and the PTA elite, buying their absolute loyalty. "You greedy, arrogant fool," Harper whispered. She plugged a small encrypted flash drive into the port and copied every single file. The transfer took 5 minutes. During that time, she methodically dusted the bookshelves, playing the part perfectly just in case the night security guard walked in. Once the drive was secure in her pocket, she turned off the monitor and left the room spotless. The next morning, Harper was outside wiping the courtyard benches when Eleanor Pratt walked by. Eleanor paused, looking down at Harper as if she were a dead insect. "You missed a spot right there," Eleanor pointed with a manicured finger. "Honestly, the help these days. Try to take some pride in your work, dear. It's the only thing you have." Harper looked at the tiny speck of dust, then up at Eleanor's condescending face. "I take great pride in my work, Mrs. Pratt," Harper said softly, her voice carrying a chilling calmness. "I always make sure the trash is taken out properly." Eleanor scoffed, completely missing the underlying threat, and walked away. Harper went back to wiping the bench. She had everything she needed. "You can't do this. Leo is innocent," the voice echoed from the principal's office. Harper paused her vacuuming in the hallway, leaning closer to the slightly cracked door. It was Jenna Hayes. "I can, and I have, Ms. Hayes," Sterling's voice replied, dripping with condescension. "The boy is a liability. He destroyed school property. I spoke to the students, and it... Just this," Jenna argued. "They admitted they were running in the hall. It was an accident, and it wasn't Leo's fault. You just want him gone so you don't have to deal with the scholarship quota." There was a heavy pause. "Ms. Hayes," Sterling said, his tone turning dangerously quiet. "You are a junior teacher. Your contract is up for renewal next month. If you continue to advocate for this street rat, you will find yourself unemployed. In fact, consider this your official warning. One more word and you're fired." The door swung open and Jenna walked out, her face pale and her eyes brimming with tears. She leaned against the lockers, burying her face in her hands. Harper turned off the vacuum and walked over gently, placing a hand on the young teacher's shoulder. "He's going to expel him, Harper," Jenna whispered, looking up. "And I can't lose this job. I have student loans. I feel like such a coward." "You are not a coward, Jenna," Harper said firmly, her voice entirely stripped of the meek janitor persona. "You are one of the only good things in this building. Do your job. Keep your head down. Let me handle the rest." Jenna looked at her, confused by the sudden commanding authority in the janitor's voice. "What can you do?" "Just trust me," Harper smiled warmly, "and make sure you attend the gala tomorrow night. It's going to be very interesting." Harper walked away, leaving her cleaning cart in the hall. She stepped out into the crisp evening air, pulling out her phone. She dialed a private number. "David," Harper said, speaking to her lead corporate attorney. "It's time. Freeze the Crestwood accounts, prepare the termination papers for Richard Sterling, and get my dress ready. I'm attending the gala tomorrow." "Understood, Ms. Vance," the deep voice replied. "Shall I summon the board of directors?" "Bring all of them," Harper said softly. "I want witnesses." The Crestwood annual Benefactors Gala was the most important night of the year. It was the night Principal Sterling schmoozed wealthy donors and, most importantly, presented his annual report to the Vance Trust representatives in hopes of securing his $10 million check. At 3 p.m. hours before the event, Sterling found Harper in the cafeteria. He snapped, pointing a finger at her. "The catering staff is short-handed. I need you working the women's restroom tonight. Handing out towels, wiping the sinks. I don't want to see you anywhere near the main ballroom. You are an eyesore." "Of course, Mr. Sterling," Harper replied blankly. "And Harper," Sterling added, a cruel smile forming on his lips, "I'll be making a special announcement tonight. We are officially dropping the bottom 20% of our scholarship students, starting with that thief Leo. The board loves a hardline approach to discipline. It shows we protect their investments." Harper's jaw tightened, but she kept her face carefully neutral. "Expelling a child publicly to impress donors, that seems harsh. That is why I am the principal and you clean toilets." Sterling laughed dismissively. "Do your job tonight, or you won't have one tomorrow." As Sterling walked away, Harper took a deep breath. She went to the staff locker room and opened her battered metal locker. Inside, hidden behind her spare mops and industrial cleaning chemicals, was a heavy black garment bag David had dropped off earlier that day. She unzipped it slightly, revealing the shimmering emerald green silk of a custom designer gown. Tonight, Sterling wanted to show the donors how he dealt with the lower class. He wanted to prove his absolute power. Harper zipped the bag back up. "You want to play God with children's lives, Richard," she thought. "Let's see how you handle the devil." She put on her gray smock over her plain clothes, grabbed her cart, and headed toward the grand ballroom's restrooms. The stage was set. By 7 p.m., the Crestwood Grand Ballroom was a sea of tuxedos, glittering gowns, and clinking champagne glasses. A string quartet played softly in the corner. Harper stood in the lavish women's restroom, wearing her gray uniform, silently, wiping down the marble countertops. The heavy wooden doors swung open, and Eleanor Pratt walked in, accompanied by 2 other PTA mothers. Eleanor adjusted her diamond necklace in the mirror, totally ignoring Harper. "Richard assures me the Vance Trust is sending someone important tonight," Eleanor bragged to her friends. "Once we secure the check, he's finally going to purge the school of those scholarship pests." "Thank goodness," one of the mothers sighed. "My son shouldn't have to share a classroom with kids who buy their clothes at thrift stores." Eleanor washed her hands and held them out expectantly. Harper quietly handed her a fresh linen towel. "Be careful not to touch my rings, dear," Eleanor sneered, snatching the towel. "You people always have such dirty hands." Harper didn't flinch. She simply looked Eleanor directly in the eyes. "Enjoy the party, Mrs. Pratt. Nights like this can be quite unpredictable." Eleanor scoffed, dropping the used towel directly onto the floor instead of the hamper, and walked out. Outside in the ballroom, Principal Sterling stepped up to the podium. The microphone screeched, slightly drawing the room's attention. "Ladies and gentlemen, esteemed parents, and honorable board members," Sterling began, his voice booming. "Tonight is about excellence. Crestwood Academy is a beacon of high society, but to maintain excellence, we must occasionally prune the dead branches." Standing near the back of the room, Jenna Hayes held Leo's hand. The boy had been forced to attend as part of his disciplinary hearing. He looked terrified. Sterling pointed toward the back. "Tonight we are making an example. We do not tolerate thievery, no matter how disadvantaged the student claims to be." In the restroom, Harper heard the speech echoing through the speakers. She unbuttoned her gray smock. It dropped to the floor. "Leo," Sterling announced from the stage, his voice echoing cruelly over the silent crowd. "Step forward. It is time for you to face the consequences of your actions." Leo froze. Jenna tightened her grip on the boy's hand, her face flushed with anger. The wealthy parents turned to stare at the child, whispering to one another in hushed, judgmental tones. Eleanor Pratt stood near the front, sipping champagne with a satisfied smirk. "Step forward, boy," Sterling demanded. "Let everyone see what happens when you disrespect this institution." Before Leo could move, the heavy double doors at the back of the grand ballroom swung open with a loud thud. Every head in the room turned. Standing in the doorway was Harper. But she was no longer wearing the faded gray uniform of a janitor. She was dressed in a breathtaking emerald green silk gown that cascaded perfectly to the floor. Her chestnut hair fell in soft, elegant waves, and a simple but undeniably flawless diamond necklace rested against her collarbone. She radiated authority, her posture straight, her green eyes locked dead onto the man at the podium. The room fell into stunned silence. Sterling blinked, gripping the edges of the podium. His face morphed from confusion to sheer outrage. "Harper," Sterling barked into the microphone. "What is the meaning of this? You are the janitor. How dare you steal a dress and intrude on this event? Security, remove this woman immediately." 2 security guards stepped forward, but before they could reach her, an older, distinguished man in a tuxedo stepped out from the VIP table. It was Arthur Pendleton, the chairman of the school board. Arthur raised his hand sharply at the guards. "Stop right there." He quickly walked over to Harper, adjusting his tie, and offered her a deep, respectful nod. "Ms. Vance, we were not expecting you to make such a grand entrance. It is an honor to finally have you here." Sterling's jaw dropped. The microphone picked up his ragged gasp. "Vance Arthur, what are you talking about?" That is the night cleaner." Harper walked past the chairman, her heels clicking methodically against the hardwood floor. The crowd parted for her, like the Red Sea. She stopped at the front of the stage, looking up at Sterling. "You told me to clean up the trash, Richard," Harper said, her voice smooth but laced with steel. "So that is exactly what I am doing." The ballroom was so quiet you could hear a pin drop. Eleanor Pratt's champagne flute slipped from her hand, shattering on the floor. Miss Vance," Sterling stammered, stepping back from the podium, his face draining of all color. I don't understand. Harper, the janitor." "Harper Vance," she corrected, walking gracefully up the stairs and onto the stage. She took the microphone from his trembling hand. She turned to face the hundreds of wealthy parents in the school board. "For the past 3 months, I have worked the night shift in this building," Harper announced calmly. "I scrubbed your floors, emptied your trash, and listened. I wanted to see how the leadership of Crestwood Academy treats those they believe have no power. The results were enlightening." She gestured to David, her attorney, who stepped forward from the crowd, holding a thick stack of folders. He began passing them directly to the board members. "Inside those folders is undeniable proof of embezzlement," Harper stated, her voice ringing clear. "Mr. Sterling has been framing scholarship students for minor infractions, expelling them, and siphoning the Vance Trust's tuition grants into a private shell company." Gasps erupted from the crowd. Sterling shook his head frantically. "No, it's a lie. She's crazy." "I also have the unedited security footage of the trophy incident," Harper continued, ignoring him, "proving that Leo was assaulted by 3 seniors and Mr. Sterling intentionally buried the evidence to frame an innocent 12-year-old boy." Harper turned to Sterling. He looked like a cornered rat, sweating profusely, his arrogant posture completely shattered. "You thought you were untouchable, Richard," Harper said softly, stepping closer to him so only the microphone caught her whisper. "You thought you could step on the weak because they had no voice. But you forgot one thing. The people who clean your offices read your trash." She turned her gaze to Eleanor Pratt in the front row. Eleanor shrank back, covering her face in absolute shame. "As of tonight, the Vance Trust is withdrawing all funding from Crestwood Academy unless the board meets 2 conditions, Harper declared. Chairman Pendleton spoke up immediately. "Name them, Ms. Vance." "First," Harper said, her voice unwavering, "Richard Sterling is terminated immediately without severance, and the evidence of his theft will be handed over to the police." Sterling collapsed into a chair on the stage, burying his face in his hands as the reality of his ruin crashed down upon him. He had just destroyed his own life. "And second?" Chairman Pendleton asked. "Second." Harper continued, her eyes finding the young teacher at the back of the room. "Jenna Hayes is hereby promoted to vice principal. She was the only staff member who showed integrity when it mattered most." "Is that so?" Jenna stood, frozen tears streaming down her face, as Leo hugged her tightly. "Agreed." The chairman nodded, without hesitation. Security guards were already moving onto the stage, lifting a sobbing Richard Sterling by his arms and marching him toward the exit. The parents watched in stunned silence as the tyrant who had ruled their school was paraded out like a common criminal. Eleanor Pratt tried to quietly slip out the side door, her social standing in ruins, knowing she had spent months insulting the most powerful woman in the state. Harper stepped down from the stage and walked straight down the aisle until she reached Leo. She knelt down, placing her hands gently on his shoulders. "You don't ever have to be afraid in this school again, Leo," Harper said warmly. "Your scholarship is fully funded through high school and into college." "Thank you," the boy whispered, wiping his eyes. "I knew you weren't just a janitor. You were too nice." Harper smiled, standing up and looking at the remaining crowd. The wealthy parents, the elite, who had ignored her for months, now looked at her with awe and fear. Money and status do not grant you the right to strip others of their dignity. Harper said, her voice echoing one last time across the silent ballroom. You can tell the true character of a person not by how they treat their superiors, but by how they treat those who can do absolutely nothing for them. She turned and walked toward the exit. Jenna caught up to her, grabbing her hand. Harper, I don't know what to say, Jenna breathed. You don't need to say anything, Jenna. You proved who you were when you helped me clean up a spilled coffee. Harper smiled. Now go take care of your school. Harper walked out the front doors into the cool night air. The heavy burden of her undercover life was lifted. She had walked in as a nobody armed with nothing but a mop and patience. But she left, knowing she had protected the vulnerable, proving that true power never needs to shout. It simply waits for the truth to reveal itself.